They thought she was just another black woman, causing trouble at a rest stop. No badge, no backup, just calm words and a quiet phone call. But when she whispered one sentence into her secure line, "Put me through to the White House," everything changed. And by the time the officers realized who they had cuffed, it was too late to unwrite what the cameras had already captured. The road had been quiet for miles, just the low hum of tires on worn asphalt and the occasional rustle of trees leaning in too close. Colonel Patrice Holloway didn't mind the silence. She preferred it. It gave her time to think, to prepare, to stay sharp. The mission briefing was in less than 4 hours, but the call couldn't wait. And in her line of work, nothing was more important than timing. She spotted the rest stop just after mile marker 73. No signs, no logos, just a fading brick building, a row of cracked vending machines, and a single flickering light above the restroom doors. A rusted "Welcome to Western County" sign leaned sideways in the weeds. She pulled in slow, tires crunching over gravel, and parked near the edge, close enough to the exit, but far enough from the others. There were only 2 other cars, a pickup truck with a faded flag decal, and a dented Camry, with out-of-state plates. No one looked up as she stepped out. Patrice wore jeans, running shoes, and a long navy windbreaker. No uniform, no insignia, just a plain black ball cap pulled low over her lokes, and a phone clutched in her right hand, secure, encrypted, and already buzzing in her palm. She checked her surroundings with a glance that was second nature. 1 bench, 1 trash bin, no cameras. Her eyes landed on a small wooden table near a row of map brochures, half shaded by a tree. She walked to it with purpose, calm, controlled, sat down, dialed in. "This is Holloway, Colonel." "Verifying identity," she said, her voice low, clipped. "Confirmed. Secure channel engaged," came the reply. "Proceeding with White House pre-brief. Eyes only clearance." She listened, her expression unreadable, as the voice on the line relayed high-level intel, cyber movements, diplomatic backchannels, red flag anomalies across the eastern seaboard. None of it was public. All of it mattered. Patrice took mental notes, every detail filing into a trained mind, honed by decades of precision. Inside the rest stop convenience store, a man behind the counter looked up. He was mid-50s, sunburned, wearing a hunting vest despite the heat. His name tag said Dale. His narrowed eyes tracked Patrice from behind a rack of beef jerky, his jaw tightening with each second she remained on that phone. He didn't like the way she stood, the way she looked. Too calm, too focused. Not from around here. To Dale, it wasn't a classified briefing, it was a problem. He picked up the store phone slowly and dialed the sheriff's office. "Yeah," he said, watching her through the dusty glass. "You might want to send someone down here. Got a woman out front, acting real suspicious. Might be on something, talking to herself, pacing, could be dangerous." He didn't mention she was black. He didn't have to. Dale hadn't moved from his stool behind the counter in almost an hour. The place was dead, like most afternoons in Western County. One customer earlier, a trucker grabbing sunflower seeds and a scratch ticket, and then nothing but the hum of the cooler and the slow melt of time. He sipped flat coffee from a chipped mug and stared through the front window. That's when he saw her. The woman had pulled in slow, like she was scoping the place out. Didn't park up front, didn't come in, just sat down at the old wooden table near the brochure rack and started talking. Not on a normal phone either, some kind of matte black device with no logo and a weird antenna. She wasn't loud, but Dale could see her lips moving, could see the way she kept scanning the area, like she was waiting for someone, or something. He didn't like it. She was dressed plain, nothing flashy, but there was something about her that rubbed him wrong. Not from around here, too sure of herself. He squinted through the glass. No license plates he recognized on the car, no shopping bag. Just her and that phone. Dale stood up slowly and walked to the window, wiping his hands on his vest like that might help him think. She was still sitting there, face calm, eyes sharp. She wasn't fidgeting, wasn't nervous. And somehow, that made it worse. He walked back behind the counter and picked up the landline. "Yeah, sheriff's office," he said, when the dispatcher answered. "It's Dale at the Western rest stop. Got a situation." A pause on the line. "There's a woman out front, black lady, maybe early 40s, wearing a windbreaker and a cap. She's been sitting out there a while, acting off. Another pause. Yeah, like, real shady. Talking into some kinda radio, or walkie-talkie. Keeps looking around like she's casing the lot. Might be on something, I dunno, just don't feel right. He hung up before they could ask too many questions. Outside, the woman hadn't moved. She was still talking, low, precise, like she was giving orders. Dale narrowed his eyes, suddenly sure she was trouble. He'd seen enough crime shows to know when someone was acting like they had nothing to hide. That's when you had to look closer. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and stared at her through the glass, like a man waiting to be proven right. And when the sound of tires crunching on gravel signaled the sheriff's cruiser pulling in, Dale didn't smile, but he didn't look surprised either. The cruiser rolled in slow, like it had all the time in the world. Dust curled up around the tires, hanging in the air like a warning. Inside, deputies Brent Kaiser and Logan Hale scanned the lot without saying a word. Just another call. Just another afternoon. Kaiser was first out, mid-40s, thick through the chest, the kind of man who walked like everyone owed him a step back. Hale followed, younger, thinner, chewing gum, like it was proof of confidence. Both wore mirrored sunglasses that caught the sun, and nothing else. Kaiser adjusted his belt, and nodded toward the bench near the maps. There, he muttered. Patrice didn't flinch when they approached. She'd seen their arrival in the reflection of her phone screen. Her voice remained steady. Proceeding with Phase 2 intel brief. Confirm clearance. Ma'am, Kaiser interrupted, voice too loud for the space between them. We're gonna need you to hang up. Patrice raised her eyes, still calm. I'm in the middle of a classified call. You'll need to wait one moment. Kaiser took a step closer. This is a public area. We got a report of suspicious behavior. I said hang up. She paused, just for a breath, then spoke into the phone. Stand by. The line went quiet, encrypted. She lowered the device, her hands visible. I'm Colonel Patrice Holloway, U.S. Army. Active duty. I'm on an encrypted briefing. May I ask the nature of the concern? Hale snorted. Colonel, Kaiser frowned. Got ID on you? Patrice nodded, reaching slowly for her wallet. Of course. It's in my back pocket. I'll retrieve it now. Slowly. She moved with the precision of someone who'd done this 100 times. She held out the credentials, military ID, federal travel orders, clearance badge, clipped beside it. Nothing rushed, nothing dramatic. Kaiser didn't take them right away, just glanced, then back at her. Lady, this could be fake for all we know. It's not, Patrice replied, her voice even. If you contact your supervisor, or run my clearance, it'll confirm everything. Hale leaned in, his voice lower now, sharp at the edges. Why you out here by yourself, hiding something? No, just trying to do my job, she said. If this interaction continues, I'll be forced to report. You don't get to tell us how this goes. Kaiser barked, stepping closer. Something in his posture shifted, less official, more personal. Patrice didn't move. She stood, quiet, her phone still in her hand. The screen blinked once, active, still connected. Hale's fingers hovered near his cuffs. Looks like we got ourselves a situation, he said. She didn't argue, didn't raise her voice, but her eyes didn't leave theirs. And somewhere, on the other end of that silent phone line, someone very powerful was listening. Kaiser finally grabbed the ID from her hand, but not like someone reviewing credentials, more like someone grabbing a receipt he didn't plan to read. He held it up to the sunlight, turned it once, then smirked. Colonel Patrice Holloway, he read flatly. That right, that's correct, she replied. My orders are attached. I'm in transit between secure locations. You're interfering with federal business. Kaiser chuckled and shook his head. You serious with this? Hale leaned in over Kaiser's shoulder, looked once at the badge, then at Patrice, then back again. This a prank or something? You're filming a social experiment. Patrice didn't answer. She knew the type, knew this exact moment, the one where truth met arrogance, and got ignored anyway. I need you to step back and verify my identity through the DoD, she said calmly. Or contact the base at Quantico. They'll confirm. Hale crossed his arms. Lady, you really expect us to believe you're some big-shot military officer, out here alone, with a magic phone, and a fake badge? I don't expect you to believe, she said. I expect you to follow protocol. Kaiser's smile dropped. That's enough. She barely blinked before he stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. You're under suspicion for impersonating a federal officer, he said, already pulling a pair of cuffs from his belt. Turn around, now. Sir, she started, raising her hands just enough to de-escalate. This is a mistake. I am not resisting, but if you proceed with this, you are violating federal law. Hale moved fast, too fast. He twisted her other arm behind her back with unnecessary force. Yeah? Then call your boss at the White House, he sneered. Oh wait, he busy today. The cuffs snapped shut, biting into the skin above her wrists. Patrice winced, just once, but said nothing. Behind her, her secure phone clattered to the pavement. The screen stayed lit, still connected. Inside the store, Dale leaned forward behind the glass, eyes narrowed, watching like he'd just won a bet. A couple by the vending machine froze, half-torn snack bag in hand. A teenager pumping gas started recording, camera angled just enough to catch her face. Kaiser shoved her toward the front of their cruiser. No sudden moves, he warned, as if she'd made even one. Hale walked back to the bench, picked up the secure phone, looked at it like it was a toy, then dropped it beside her feet. The screen spider-webbed with cracks. Patrice stood beside the cruiser, breathing hard, jaw clenched. Not from fear, from fury. Not loud, not visible, but deep. She didn't yell, didn't plead, didn't beg. She just said one thing, low and sharp enough to cut through the noise. You just made the worst decision of your career. In Washington, the Situation Room buzzed like a hive. Monitors blinked with satellite feeds, encrypted lines chirped, and somewhere beneath it all, a faint pulse of urgency ran like an electric current. Lieutenant Marshal Dwyer sat at Station 6, reviewing the early report from the Northeast Corridor. Routine stuff, until a red light flickered in the corner of his screen. Secure call disrupted. Echo node 44. His fingers paused mid-keystroke. He leaned forward, blinked, double-checked the ID tag. Colonel P. Holloway, active call interrupted. Run that trace again, he muttered. The audio feed, still open but scrambled, sputtered faintly. Static. Then a thud. Then what sounded like voices, muffled, clipped, aggressive. A woman's voice, calm but firm, cut through for half a second. You are violating federal. Clatter. Silence. Dwyer's throat tightened. Control, I've got Echo 44 compromised. Get ComSec on the line now. Within seconds the room shifted. A technician from across the room stood up fast, headset slipping sideways. Sir, we've lost biometric continuity. No hand signal verification. Device was dropped or forcibly disconnected. Colonel Janice Kwan, the White House's liaison for domestic field coordination, stepped in from a side office, drawn by the rising commotion. She didn't ask for a report. She could read the tension in Dwyer's face. Who's the call trace? She asked. Holloway. Colonel Patrice Holloway. Tier 1 access. En route to joint cyber briefing. Kwan didn't blink. Get her location. Now. The map blinked. A red dot glowed on a rural slice of West Virginia. Highway 33. Near a gas station rest stop. Far from any base. Far from anything. Kwan's voice sharpened. Why is she stationary? She was supposed to be in transit. No idea, ma'am, Dwyer said. But someone's with her. I heard voices. Malik. Local dialect. They cut her off mid-brief. Kwan's jaw tightened. She turned toward the communications table, her voice slicing clean across the hum of operations. Patch me through to West Wing Ops and Defense Comms. We have a Tier 1 officer compromised on domestic soil. Activate the Barksdale Protocol, and prep a QRT intercept. She is not to be mishandled. Yes, ma'am. Ping her phone again. Keep it live. No disconnection unless I say. Dwyer looked up, the weight settling on his shoulders. What if they've already? They haven't, she cut in. Because if they had, we'd be seeing a whole different kind of red alert. The room moved fast now. Phones lighting up, directives flying, location triangulation narrowing to within inches. But back in West Virginia, no one outside the convenience store knew what was coming. Not the bystanders, not the clerk, and certainly not the two officers who had just thrown a colonel in cuffs, while the White House listened live. The moment her signal vanished completely, the Situation Room dropped into silence. Not the calm kind, the kind right before a storm. Colonel Janice Kwan stood frozen, one hand resting on the edge of the console, eyes locked on the red no contact banner flashing across the screen. Her voice, when it came, was low, controlled, measured in the way only war-trained officers speak when something is going very, very wrong. Confirm last ping. Dwyer's fingers flew across the keyboard. 17 seconds ago. GPS tag locked on arrest stop. Western County, West Virginia. Highway 33. Any movement? No, ma'am. Stationary. She hasn't moved in over 8 minutes. Kwan turned toward the room, spine straightening. Then we stop asking questions. She tapped her earpiece. This is Kwan. Initiate Blackbird sweep protocol. Echo agent compromised. Direct line to cyber operations. I want eyes in the sky, and boots en route now. On the far wall, a tactical map lit up with layers, terrain, roadways, aerial feeds. A blinking red dot marked the rest stop. Remote, exposed, surrounded by nothing but hills and silence. Patch into traffic cams, Kwan ordered. Pull local law enforcement scanner. If this was a stop and search, we need audio, now. A tech pulled up grainy dashcam footage. Another spliced together a feed from a nearby toll station. No sound, just the glint of a cruiser's lights. 2 men, 1 woman, a pair of cuffs. God, someone muttered. They really put her in cuffs. Kwan didn't blink. Contact Barksdale. Full emergency transport team. Secure extraction protocol. ETA. 17 minutes. Too long. Call the West Virginia State Liaison. Tell them the U.S. military has a colonel detained unlawfully. No delays. No denials. The words hung heavy in the air. Across the room, a younger officer turned from his station, voice shaking slightly. Ma'am, should we notify the president? Kwan paused. Not because she was unsure, but because of what it meant to say yes. Not yet, she replied. We have 17 minutes to make this right before the press does it for us. She stepped toward the central display, zoomed in on the rest stop. They saw a black woman on a phone call, she said quietly, almost to herself. Didn't ask who, didn't ask why, they just decided. The room stayed silent. Now they're going to find out. Behind her, the tactical clock began its countdown. 17 minutes, then 16, then 15, and somewhere, sitting cuffed against the side of a dusty cruiser, Colonel Patrice Holloway hadn't moved an inch, but the entire federal government was now moving for her. The sun was higher now, sharp and unforgiving. Heat shimmered off the pavement, making the air dance around the parked cruiser. Patrice sat on the curb, wrists cuffed behind her back, legs stretched in front of her, ankles crossed. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared ahead, her expression carved from stone. Kaiser stood over her, arms folded, badge gleaming against his chest, like it meant something. You got a name besides the one on that fake badge? He asked, more smirk than question. Patrice said nothing. Hale crouched beside her, elbows on his knees like they were just 2 neighbors chatting. Where you headed, Colonel? He asked, the word heavy with mockery. Got any buddies hiding in the trees, waiting for a signal? She turned her head slightly, met his eyes without a word. Something about that silence unsettled him. He looked away first. A few feet back, the crowd had grown. Maybe 8 people now. 1 man with a camera phone. A woman with a gas nozzle still in her hand. Even Dale had stepped outside, arms crossed, watching like it was all part of his lunch break entertainment. Kaiser ran a hand down his face. Exaggerated. All right, lady. We tried being nice. Now you either tell us what you're really doing out here. His radio crackled to life. Unit 9, come in. Confirm detainment of subject. Kaiser clicked the mic. Yeah, subject is in custody. Female, black, early 40s, claiming military, possibly mental health episode. Negative. The voice on the other end was sharp. Federal, no accent. Do not detain. Repeat. Subject is federal protected. Colonel Patrice Holloway. Clearance verified through DOD. Immediate release ordered. Stand by for contact from Pentagon liaison. The world shifted. Kaiser blinked, frozen mid-step. Hale stood up slowly, face pale beneath the summer sun. Even Dale squinted like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Patrice didn't move, just exhaled slowly through her nose. What the hell? Kaiser whispered, his voice suddenly small. The radio crackled again. You are instructed to uncuff the subject immediately and await federal response. Mishandling will trigger disciplinary review. Kaiser fumbled for the keys, hands clumsy now. He didn't look her in the eye as he unlocked the cuffs. Patrice rolled her wrists slowly, the red marks fresh and raw. I need my phone, she said quietly. Hale moved like a man in a trance, retrieved the cracked device from the pavement, and placed it gently in her hands. She stood, not fast, not slow, just with the kind of unbothered grace that made everyone else feel small. The crowd had gone quiet. Kaiser cleared his throat, trying to find something to say, but no words came. Patrice just looked at them both and said, with terrifying calm, you should start preparing your statements now. And then, the low rumble of black SUVs approached in the distance. The first SUV turned in off the highway without slowing, tires hissing on gravel, followed by 3 more blacked-out windows, government plates, engines humming like restrained thunder. The kind of vehicles that didn't belong in Weston County, the kind that made everyone stop what they were doing. By the time the second SUV rolled to a halt, the parking lot had gone dead quiet. Phones were already out, fingers tapped screens, whispers passed like wind. The lead vehicle door opened. A tall man in a tailored black suit stepped out, earpiece coiled tight behind his ear, eyes scanning sharp. Behind him came 2 more, U.S. Marshals, vests under jackets, moving with the smooth, silent precision that said they weren't here to ask questions. At the rear of the convoy, another door opened, and out stepped a woman, early 50s, dark blazer, press badge clipped beside a federal security ID. Her heels clicked against the cracked concrete, like a metronome for chaos about to be measured. White House liaison Elise Monroe didn't waste a second. Where is she? She asked, voice crisp, slicing through the thick air. Kaiser stepped forward, flustered, hand halfway to his belt. In some reflex he immediately regretted. She's right there, ma'am. We didn't know who. Elise turned. Colonel Holloway. Patrice nodded once. Calm. Composed. Ma'am. The marshals flanked her instantly. Not because she needed protection, but because protocol demanded they do what should have been done from the start. You all right? One of them asked under his breath. Physically, yes, Patrice said. Institutionally, we'll see. Elise looked at Kaiser and Hale like they were specs she had to acknowledge for legal reasons. Which one of you cuffed a colonel, cleared for Tier 1 national defense briefings? Neither answered. Which one ignored verified military ID and federal travel papers? Still nothing. That's what I thought. She turned to her team. Secure the perimeter. Upload dash footage. Get names, statements, timestamps. Now. Kaiser's voice broke through barely. Ma'am, we didn't mean any harm. She was acting suspicious. We didn't know that she was black and confident. Yes, I imagine that did confuse you, Elise said flatly. You're going to want union representation by tonight. Patrice watched them both, her gaze unreadable. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She just picked up her cracked phone, checked the screen, and said quietly to Monroe, let's finish the briefing. They walked together toward the SUV, marshals shielding her from the growing crowd of eyes and lenses. Behind them, Kaiser stood still, hands clenched, as his radio chirped again. Stand by. DOJ incoming. And just like that, the town of Weston learned what power actually looks like. Not loud, not violent, just steady, unflinching, and backed by every part of the country that actually mattered. The first video hit Twitter before the motorcade even cleared the next county line. Grainy, vertical, shaky hands. But the image was unmistakable. A black woman in handcuffs, sitting quietly on the curb, while 2 white deputies stood over her like they'd just bagged a threat. Then came the audio. Colonel Patrice Holloway, you just made the worst decision of your career. That line landed like a spark in dry brush. By the time the convoy reached the secure perimeter at Barksdale, the video had already hit 2 million views. By the time Patrice stepped into the debriefing chamber, her name was trending in 6 countries. News outlets scrambled to keep up. Breaking U.S. Army. Colonel handcuffed by local deputies, in apparent misidentification leaked. Federal source confirms Colonel Patrice Holloway. Advises White House cyber response team commentary. What happens when a black woman in power isn't seen at all? They showed stills of her face, compared her service record, 29 years, 3 tours, Bronze Star, Joint Service Commendation Medal, against the footage of her cuffed on a curb like she was nobody. It didn't take long for the truth to outpace the spin. By sundown, every major network had confirmed it. Colonel Holloway wasn't just military brass. She was a direct advisor to the president on national cybersecurity, a strategist responsible for neutralizing threats so sensitive they didn't make the news. The press rolled out her credentials like a resume stapled to an apology. Dartmouth grad, fluent in Russian and Farsi, lead architect of the 2023 Solargate recovery. Clearance level, presidential tier 1, and yet she'd been mistaken for a threat, in broad daylight, with paperwork in hand. The backlash hit fast. Clips from the dashcam released under mounting pressure showed exactly what happened. The dismissal, the laughter, the cuffs. Civil rights organizations issued statements by the hour. Military veterans weighed in with disgust. And somewhere between the headlines and the hashtags, people started saying her name with the respect it should have carried all along. Patrice Holloway, not just a colonel, a symbol now, the kind you can't erase once the truth is out. Meanwhile, Western County's Sheriff's Department went into hiding. Their phone lines flooded. Their website crashed under the weight of public fury. Internal Affairs arrived with subpoenas before sunrise. The 2 deputies, identified, doxed, suspended pending investigation, and somewhere tucked in a quiet hotel room near the base. Patrice sat on the edge of the bed, untouched meal on the tray beside her, watching her own face loop on the screen, again and again. She didn't smile, she didn't cry, she just powered off the TV, and picked up her cracked phone to finish the briefing they'd tried to silence. The podium stood under a clean white canopy, flanked by American flags that barely moved in the still heat. Reporters clustered like birds, cameras stacked 3 deep, lenses pointed with surgical hunger, boom mics hovered, pens clicked, phones streamed, and behind it all, the low buzz of tension, not chaos, not noise, expectation. Colonel Patrice Holloway stepped to the microphone with the same steady walk she used in war zones. Full dress uniform, ribbons lined sharp across her chest. Her posture didn't ask for respect. It commanded it. But her eyes, they were tired in a way the cameras would miss, not from defeat, from carrying the weight of dignity in a world that kept trying to strip it away. She didn't wait for the hush. "My name is Colonel Patrice Holloway," she said, voice clear enough to cut glass. "I've served in the United States Army for nearly 3 decades. I have led operations in 6 countries, built the nation's cybersecurity infrastructure from the ground up, and advised 2 administrations on matters of national defense." She let that settle for a breath. "Last week I was handcuffed outside a rest stop for making a phone call. No dramatics. No raised tone. Just the truth. I showed identification. I gave my name. I provided federal travel orders. And still I was dismissed, disbelieved, restrained." A few murmurs rippled across the press line, but no one interrupted. "Now let me be clear. This is not about 2 officers. This is about the culture that trained them to see a black woman alone and assume threat, not service. To see confidence and mistake it for defiance. To look at a uniformed resume and still reach for handcuffs before reason." She paused, eyes locked on the front row. She wasn't speaking to journalists. She was speaking through them. "Some have said I showed restraint, that I was calm under pressure. But I wasn't calm, because I wanted to be. I was calm because history has taught women like me that raising our voice only raises suspicion." Another pause. "I don't want apologies. I want accountability. I want change measured, not in press releases, but in policy, training and action." Behind her, the flag stirred gently. The wind picked up, as if listening. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," she said, "but I am here to ask a question." Her eyes scanned the rows of faces. "What does it say about a country when 2 men with badges couldn't recognize a woman who helps protect it?" Silence. Thick, absolute. She didn't wait for applause. She just stepped back from the mic, nodded once to the room, and walked away. And in that stillness before the reporters exploded into motion, the only sound was the slow, deliberate echo of her boots on the stage. The headlines came fast, but not faster than the subpoenas. Within 48 hours of the press conference, The Department of Justice launched a formal inquiry into the Mosswood incident. Words like unlawful detainment, civil rights violation, and gross misconduct threaded through every memo, every news cycle, every late-night segment. It wasn't just about two officers anymore. It was about how a system could fail that easily, that publicly, with documentation in hand and cameras rolling. Deputies Brent Kaiser and Logan Hale were placed on immediate administrative leave, stripped of badge and weapon pending formal charges. The Sheriff's Department issued a half-hearted statement, citing training gaps and miscommunication. No one bought it. A federal review of rural law enforcement protocols was announced by week's end. New reforms were proposed: mandatory bias training, enhanced ID verification procedures, whistleblower protections, and an independent accountability board for small precincts. Quiet measures that on paper meant progress. But Patrice didn't hold press conferences about those things. She didn't tweet victory threads. She didn't sit for interviews with evening hosts. She declined every award offer, every honorary plaque, because to her, none of it felt like winning. She went back to work, back to secure briefings, red folders, unmarked doors, back to the invisible corridors, where real power hummed low and constant, where no one asked what she was doing there, because everyone already knew. Still, something had shifted. At the Pentagon, junior officers stood a little straighter when she passed. At base checkpoints, soldiers addressed her with a little more gravity. Not fear, not awe, just a quiet understanding that they'd seen what she carried, and how she carried it. One afternoon, in the middle of a routine clearance update, a young black airman stopped her in the hallway. Couldn't have been more than 22. Fresh buzz cut, name tag crooked. "Ma'am," he said softly, almost unsure, "I saw the footage. What you did, it mattered." She looked at him, eyes steady. "What they did mattered," she said. "What I did was refuse to disappear." The airman nodded, swallowed hard, and kept walking. Patrice turned back to her office, fingers brushing the edge of her cracked phone. Still functional, still hers. She hadn't replaced it. A reminder, maybe, not of what happened, but of what must never be allowed to happen unnoticed again. She knew the story would fade. That new headlines would come, that cameras would move on. But legacy isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It just needs people who keep walking, even when the crowd has gone quiet. And Patrice Holloway, she was still walking, steady, unshaken, because she knew dignity doesn't announce itself. It just endures. If Colonel Holloway's story moved you, don't let it end here. Noel, and stand up for the unseen, speak up for the unheard, and challenge the systems that still mistake presence for threat. Share her name. Share the truth. And let this story be more than viral. Let it be a turning point.